What if the very thing you've been told to suppress is the very thing that makes you magnetic? What if the softness you hide, the silence you fill with noise, the longing you keep buried beneath the performance of "I'm fine" is actually the reason a man can't forget you, not because you tried to be unforgettable, but because, for once, someone dared to be real? In this video, we're going to unravel something quietly powerful, a secret that has nothing to do with how you look, how you flirt, or how many games you play. This is deeper. A woman who awakens something ancient in a man, not just his attention, not just desire, but his soul. If you've ever felt like no matter how much you give, it's never quite enough. If you've ever wondered why he pulled away just when you thought things were going right. If you've ever questioned whether love means losing yourself in the process, you're not broken, you're not too much, and you're not hard to love. But chances are you've been taught to lead with the wrong parts of you. To earn love, not embody it. To impress, not express. You've been praised for being low maintenance and independent. But secretly you're exhausted from being everything and still feeling invisible. Today, we touch the truth. Slowly, tenderly. You don't need to armor up here. Let it fall. Take a breath with me. Just one. Now exhale. Let's talk about the kind of woman men can't resist. Not because she traps them, not because she chases, but because she mirrors something he didn't even know he was aching for. She doesn't come from ego. She comes from depth. And once you feel it, you'll never settle again. If you find pieces of yourself in these words, if something inside you softens or sharpens, subscribe to the channel. Like this video, not out of obligation, but because we're building a space where truth isn't scary and softness isn't weakness. Let's begin. She wasn't loud when she entered the room. She didn't wear the brightest colors or toss her hair with rehearsed precision. In fact, you might miss her at first glance, but something about her lingers. You find yourself looking back. Not because she demanded your attention, but because she held herself like someone who didn't need it. He noticed her in that way that men rarely talk about, not with their words, but with their breath. The slight pause, the quiet flicker of recognition, not because of how she looked, but because of how she made him feel in her presence. Seen, but not judged. Invited, but not pulled. Grounded, like she wasn't scanning the room for someone better. Something more. She wasn't trying to be mysterious. She simply wasn't afraid of silence. He felt it, that strange peace, and it disarmed him. Most women he'd met were trying to win something. Approval, attention, certainty. But she wasn't trying to win. She was trying to connect. And that changes everything. See, men aren't immune to deep emotion. They just hide from it. Sometimes even more than women do. Because the world rarely teaches boys how to sit with what's raw. They're taught to conquer it, to control it, to bury it. And then she walks in and she doesn't flinch at the storm behind his eyes. She doesn't tell him to be a man when he's scared or get over it when he's grieving. She doesn't try to fix him. She listens in a way that feels like forgiveness. And it terrifies him at first. Because it's rare. Because it's sacred. Because it's everything he didn't know he needed. But don't misunderstand. She's not passive. Her power is not in sacrificing herself to hold his pain. She knows her own shadows. She's sat with them, named them, danced with them. She doesn't run from discomfort, hers or his. That's the kind of woman a man can't forget. Not the one who says all the right things, but the one who doesn't flinch when things get real. The one who can sit in the quiet with you, and somehow, it feels like home. The first sign of this kind of woman is not what she says, it's what she allows. She allows herself to be seen, fully, without the mask. She doesn't lead with a version of herself that she thinks will be more accepted, more loved, more chosen. She leads with truth, with vulnerability. That's her rebellion. And it's magnetic, because we live in a world where so many people are performing, hiding, posturing, and then she shows up, and she's just real. A man feels it in his body before his mind catches up. It's not chemistry, it's recognition. Like something old inside him remembers her, even if he's never met her before. But this isn't just about how she impacts him. This is about who she is with herself, because you can't offer someone presence if you abandon yourself. And she doesn't. She honors her intuition, even when it doesn't make sense to others. She doesn't shrink to avoid conflict. She doesn't perform femininity to be palatable. She moves with integrity, not perfection. And when she loves, She loves from a place of wholeness, not lack. That kind of love doesn't hook a man. It heals him. It wasn't always like this for her. There was a time when she bent herself into smaller and smaller shapes just to be loved, when she confused tolerance for connection and silence for peace, when she wore the smile that made everyone comfortable, even as it scraped against the truth in her throat. There was a time she would overgive, over-apologize, over-function, because if she could just be enough, maybe she wouldn't be left. Maybe love would stay, but it never did. At least, not the kind that reached her soul. She knows what it feels like to be praised for her strength while slowly falling apart inside. To be told she's the cool girl, the easy one, so low maintenance. Like it's a compliment, but really it was a warning. That they only valued her for what she could suppress. She used to call it love. But now she calls it survival. And the turning point wasn't loud. There was no dramatic moment, no perfect epiphany. It was quiet. A long night alone. A moment in front of the mirror. A truth that rose up like a whisper. I'm tired of disappearing. That was the beginning. She started saying no, not to punish, but to protect. She stopped chasing those who made her doubt her own light. She let go of the need to be chosen and chose herself instead. And that was when everything shifted. Because the moment she stopped trying to be the woman they wanted, she became the woman they couldn't forget. Not because she was finally enough, but because she was finally her. The second sign of a woman men can't resist is her emotional clarity. Not drama, not chaos, but depth, the kind that makes her feel alive, even when she's sad. The kind that makes her words linger in the air long after she's gone. She's not afraid of her feelings. She doesn't label them too much. She allows them, moves through them, owns them. That makes her rare, that makes her radiant. Most people try to control their emotions so they won't scare others away. She doesn't. She feels. And in doing so, she invites others to feel too. When a man meets her, he doesn't just meet a woman. He meets a mirror of his longing, of his tenderness, of the parts of himself he thought he had to hide. She doesn't make him more of a man. She reminds him he never had to stop being human. There is a softness to her, but it's not weak. It's wild. It's the kind of softness that holds boundaries without building walls. That lets you in, but not without integrity. That listens, but not at the cost of her own voice. She doesn't chase, but she invites. She doesn't cling, but she stays if you meet her there. Men feel it. That quiet confidence, that stillness, that sense that she won't beg, won't barter, won't perform. She simply is, and you either rise to meet her or you fade from her life. She won't stop you, not because she doesn't care, but because she does, for herself. There was a moment, it always comes, when he tries to pull away. Not because she did anything wrong, not because the connection wasn't real, but because real is terrifying when all you've ever known is almost. He feels it rising in him, the old fear. That love means losing freedom. That closeness means exposure. That being seen will somehow cost him his identity. So he retreats, not out of cruelty but confusion. It's instinct. It's armor. And here's where she becomes unforgettable. She doesn't chase. She doesn't collapse. She doesn't turn herself into a version of herself that he might find easier to handle. She lets him go. Not as a tactic, not as reverse psychology, but because she understands something most people never learn, that when someone pulls away, your job is not to prove your worth. It's to protect your peace. And that's the third sign of the kind of woman men can't resist. She doesn't confuse love with self-abandonment. She stays rooted, even in the ache. She lets her heart break, but she doesn't break her boundaries. She mourns what's lost, but doesn't go searching for scraps. She honors her capacity to love, but never again at the cost of herself. He feels it, the difference. Most women, he's used to them folding, apologizing for asking too much, shrinking so he'll stay, twisting themselves in knots just to keep the connection going, even when it's draining the life out of them. But she doesn't do that. She loves cleanly, with open hands, with a spine and a pulse. And for the first time in his life, he realizes that love doesn't have to mean control or chaos or compromise of the soul. It can be mutual, respectful, fierce, yes, but never frantic. He starts to miss her, not because she made herself scarce, but because being near her felt like truth. That kind of woman, the one who refuses to twist herself into someone else's fantasy. She doesn't need to beg to be remembered. She's unforgettable, not for her performance, but for her presence. And presence is the fourth sign. There's a stillness to her that you can't fake. She listens without waiting to reply. She speaks only when it means something. She makes eye contact that isn't seductive, but sacred. She asks real questions, not to be polite, but to touch your soul. She's not the loudest in the room, but somehow everything slows when she speaks, because her words are connected to her knowing, not her need. She carries her history with grace, not bitterness. She's been hurt, yes, but she's not jaded. She's aware deeply, but not armored. Her presence tells a story without needing to explain it. When a man meets her, it disorients him, because nothing about her presence is performative. She's not trying to be liked. She's not trying to be impressive. She's not trying at all. She's simply being. And in a world addicted to performance, that level of realness feels like a home you didn't know you lost. He doesn't understand it at first, but he remembers how she made him feel like he could stop performing too. That's the kind of woman who lives in the back of a man's mind long after she's gone. He will try to replace her, not out of malice, not out of betrayal, but because he doesn't yet know how to sit with the ache she left behind, the ache of being truly seen, then left with his own reflection. So he finds someone prettier, louder, maybe even funnier. And for a while it works. They laugh, they kiss, they post the pictures that say, "I'm fine." But something's missing, and he can't name it, not yet. Only that the laughter feels thinner, the silence feels heavier, the connection lighter, because she gave him something no one else did. A feeling of being known, without being fixed, desired, without being needed, loved, without being controlled. He scrolls back through the old messages, not to rehash, but to remember. The way she spoke, the way she asked him questions no one else bothered to ask, the way she made him feel like he could tell the truth and not be punished for it. And that's when it hits him. She didn't fall in love with his potential. She loved the part of him that he'd buried long ago, the scared, confused, unfinished part. And still, she looked at him like he was already whole. He starts to realize she wasn't magic because she chased him. She was magic because she didn't. She let him choose. And in doing so, she gave him a chance to become the kind of man worthy of choosing her back. That's the fifth sign. She doesn't inspire possession. She inspires transformation, because she isn't trying to be chosen. She's choosing to. And in a world where many women are taught that their value lies in being picked, she flips the script. She knows that her presence is a gift, not a transaction. Her love is sacred, not a service. He doesn't forget that. He may pretend to. He may distract himself. But when he's lying awake, staring at the ceiling, her voice echoes in the quiet corners of his mind. Not because she said anything dramatic, but because she said what no one else dared to. She once asked him softly, seriously, "Do you know what you're running from?" He didn't answer. He changed the subject. But the question stayed. She made him look inward, not out of guilt, but out of grace. She didn't demand he be better. She believed he could be. And that belief, without pressure, did more to stir him than any ultimatum ever could. The woman a man can't resist doesn't lure him in. She awakens him to himself, to what's possible, to what's been missing. And once you've been awakened, the old games feel hollow. He may come back, or he may not, but whether he does is not the point. She's not waiting, because here's the final sign. She is not in love with potential, not his, not hers. She's in love with the real, the raw, unfiltered, present moment, the now. She doesn't fantasize about who someone could be. She honors who they are now, and whether or not that aligns with her truth. And if it doesn't, she leaves, not to punish, not to prove anything, but because her peace is more precious than her longing. She doesn't need closure. She is the closure. There's a quiet kind of grief in her, but not the kind that keeps her stuck. It's the kind that has learned how to let go with grace, the kind that has kissed the pain on the forehead and whispered, "You taught me something." She moves forward not with bitterness, but with clarity, and clarity is her compass now. She no longer entertains half-loves, unfinished sentences, or lukewarm intentions. She doesn't decode mixed signals, she deletes them. She doesn't wonder if she's asking for too much. She realizes she was asking the wrong person. And this is why she shines without trying, because her energy is clean. She doesn't drain you with unspoken expectations or emotional debts. She doesn't wear her wounds like warning signs. She owns them, integrates them, turns them into wisdom. And because of this, when you're around her, you feel something rare, safe, not because she coddles you, but because she meets you where you are and invites you to rise. A man can sense it the moment she looks at him, that she's not just hearing his words, she's listening to the spaces in between. The words he won't say, the things he's scared to admit. She notices, and she doesn't flinch, she doesn't push. She waits, softly, not out of passivity but respect, because she knows true intimacy can't be forced. It must be offered, and if it's not, she walks, not in anger, in alignment. That's the kind of woman who haunts a man's memory, because she doesn't just love him. She loves the parts of him that no one ever clapped for. The boy inside the man, the shame he tried to hide, the dreams he abandoned to be realistic. She saw it all and loved without trying to possess, and yet, she never betrayed herself to do it. That's what leaves a mark. Not what she gave, but what she didn't give up. She didn't betray her intuition to stay longer than was right. She didn't silence her needs to avoid the discomfort of truth. She didn't pretend to be okay just to avoid being alone. She chose herself, and not in some grand, defiant, dramatic way. She chose herself quietly. Every time she said no when it would have been easier to say yes. Every time she paused instead of explaining. Every time she let the door close instead of chasing someone who couldn't meet her there. This is what men remember. Not just her beauty, not just her laugh, but her integrity. The sense that she was never performing, not for them, not for the world, and not even for herself. She had nothing to prove. And that is irresistible, because men, at their core, want to trust a woman before they want to love her. They want to know she won't collapse into them, lose herself inside them, or punish them for not filling the holes she hasn't healed. She doesn't demand he be her source. She is her source, and she invites him not to save her, not to complete her, but to walk beside her. Fully whole, fully human, fully free. She doesn't play hard to get. She simply is hard to reach for those still living in distraction, still chasing validation, still avoiding the deep work. Because she is the deep work. Every part of her radiates the kind of energy that makes men pause and ask themselves, am I ready to show up fully? Not everyone is, and she's okay with that. She doesn't need to be understood by everyone. She doesn't want to be chosen by the masses. She only wants to be met soul to soul, truth to truth, breath to breath. She'd rather walk alone than pretend to be half of herself, just to be loved halfway. That's the essence of her. A woman who refuses to beg for love is always the most powerful person in the room. She's felt loneliness so deeply that she no longer fears it. She's been through heartbreaks that cracked her open, not to destroy her, but to rebuild her softer, wiser, more whole. She's no longer seduced by chaos or addicted to hope. She's moved beyond that, and now, her peace is louder than her pain. She's the kind of woman who lights up a space, not because she needs the spotlight, but because she carries her own light. She doesn't dim it for anyone. She doesn't shine it to blind others. She just is, and that's what makes her unforgettable. You don't remember what she wore. You remember how you felt in her presence. You don't remember every word she said. You remember how she made silence feel safe. You don't remember the moments she cried. You remember how beautiful it was to witness someone feel without shame. There's no performance in her, no pretending, and when you've tasted that authenticity with depth, everything else feels empty. Men come back to that kind of woman, even if only in dreams. They remember the way she never asked them to be more than they were, but somehow made them want to be more. The way she held herself like someone who wouldn't settle for almosts. The way she walked away with love still in her eyes, but not in her plans. Because she doesn't cling to love. She honors it. And when it's time to let go, she lets go fully. She doesn't keep people on emotional leashes. She doesn't send mixed signals or test loyalty. She trusts. She opens. And if that's not held, she closes. Not out of punishment, but out of protection. And men, they remember that kind of strength. The kind that doesn't scream. The kind that doesn't demand. The kind that simply is. She's the woman they tell their friends about years later. The one who changed them. The one who made them feel seen in a way no one else had. The one they compare others to, quietly. even if they don't mean to. Because when a woman lives from her soul, she becomes the standard, not the exception. He may never tell her. He may never find the words, or the moment, or the courage. He may move on with someone who fits more easily into the life he's constructed, the life with walls instead of windows, certainty instead of connection. He may convince himself that she was just a phase, a beautiful mistake, a memory better left untouched. But inside, he knows better. Because no one touches a soul like that and walks away unchanged. He'll remember how she paused before she spoke, how she held space for silence like it was part of the conversation, how she never filled the air with noise just to keep things comfortable, how she let him feel things, deep things, and didn't flinch when he cried. She was unafraid of his unraveling, because she had unraveled too. She had faced her own shadows. She had met the parts of herself she once tried to escape, and instead of judging them, she stayed. She learned to love herself, not in spite of her pain, but through it. And that's the kind of love she offered. Not clean, not easy, but real. That's the final kind of woman. A man can't forget, the one who's not afraid of the dark, because she doesn't need him to be perfect. She just needs him to be present. She's not asking for heroics. She's asking for honesty, not romance wrapped in empty gestures, but love that stays when it's hard and speaks when it's messy and listens when it's unsure. That's what makes her so rare. And that's why she's not available to just anyone. Because a woman like that, a woman who has loved herself through fire, she's not interested in someone who runs at smoke. She doesn't open up easily. She doesn't hand over her soul in hopes it will be held. She waits, watches, feels. And when she chooses you, it's not because she's lonely. It's not because she needs validation. It's because something in you echoes something in her. That's sacred. And if you waste it, you'll feel it. Not as punishment, not as revenge, but as absence. Because you can find 1,000 women to fill a bed, but only once, maybe twice, in a lifetime do you find one who fills your being. And when that woman leaves, her presence doesn't go with her. It stays. In the words you almost said, in the nights you can't sleep, in the quiet moments when you realize no one else has looked at you like that since. She loved him without ownership, and in doing so, she taught him what love really is. Now, it's his to carry, and it's hers to continue in her own life, in her own way, with someone who meets her with the same depth she gave. Because love, for her, is not about being remembered. It's about being met, fully, completely, honestly. And if that's too much for some, so be it. She will never apologize for the depth of her waters, because the ones who are ready, they don't drown, they dive.